What's going on YouTube, and happy month of October. Like I've been doing on the past few years on the channel, I'm going to be keeping up with the Halloween theme. And Generation 6 has the two perfect Pokemon to meet this theme in Trevenant and Gourgeist. Of course, in these runs, I'll be running the shiny forms because, well, I just think they look really cool. As to why I chose to start with Trevenant first, well, I flipped a coin. And while we ponder what size Gourgeist I want to go with, let's take a look at Trevenant's stats. And there are two things that immediately stick out about this Pokemon: the 110 base attack and the 56 base speed. Of course, what we really need to look at is Trevenant's move pool. The saving grace is that we at least start with two physical moves in Astonish and Hornleech, although Astonish is trash. As Trevenant's TM scroll, you'll learn that it learns a lot of physical moves that provide pretty decent coverage: Earthquake, Return, Dig, Poison Jab, X-Scissor, just to name a few. And one move that I think could pair well with the last two mentioned is actually Trevenant's signature move, Forest Curse. I had actually never heard about this move until I started this run, but what it does is it adds the grass typing to the target. It's similar to Gourgeist's Trick or Treat, except that move adds the Ghost typing to the opponent. Last, before we get into the run, I want to talk about Trevenant's ability. Its two natural abilities are Natural Cure, which heals it upon switching out, and since this is a solo run, we won't be using that. Frisk, which can check the foe's held item, and finally its hidden ability, Harvest, which gives you the chance of creating another berry if you use one in battle, and it always works in the sunlight. And considering Trevenant can learn Sunny Day, this is the ability I decided to go with. Hopefully I'm able to make use of this ability throughout the run. I'm also going to be running an Adamant Nature with perfect DVs. I don't think Hidden Power is going to be of any use in this run. If it weren't for the fact that Trevenant can learn Earthquake, Bulldoze, and Dig, I probably would have gone with Hidden Power Ground for this one. So one thing I do with Trevenant in the early game, aside from making the overworld the night aesthetic to fit the theme of Halloween, is I'm going to be picking up all of the optional battles in Santaloon Forest, along with the optional battles right outside of Santaloon City. The short answer is because you can easily lose to Viola if you aren't slightly over-leveled. Which I don't want to give spoilers, but I kinda have to. I actually lose my first battle to Viola. Surprising, I know. But I guess this is actually my second battle because I actually had to restart the run because I forgot to set my DVs, nature, and ability at first. But I also lost to her in that run. And one big key factor for the loss in this run is getting poisoned by Last Charlotte's Kakuna right before Viola. And when you combine that with the chip damage that Infestation does every turn as well, it just spells bad news. And in the first run that I reset, it was my inability to deal any significant damage to Vivian, along with the chip damage from Infestation that did me in, combined with the fact that Viola also has a potion. Looking back at this footage, what I really should have did was chip down the Surskit with Astonish and get her to use her potion on it instead of saving it for Vivian. As far as my plan against Vivian goes, I want to confuse it, hit it with Astonish, and just hope for the best. And while hoping for the best, I get a critical hit to knock it out. No potion used in this battle. I continue training on Route 4 because the battle against the Professor can actually be pretty tough. The Charmander's Ember can deal pretty significant damage, and if it burns you, yeah, that's just a reset. And that's actually where the very first run I did with this Pokemon had its hard reset. Because when I reset my game, I was back in Viola's gym, and I decided, did I even set all my stats and nature and all that? And when I loaded it up in PK Hex, I had not. With my extra training getting to level 13, the battle against the Professor is a pretty easy one, and the Charmander doesn't use Ember at all on me. And this time, thanks to the randomizer, we have our choice between Beldum, Kling, and Horsey. Of course, I'm going to go with Horsey and just change it to a Squirtle in PK Hex. Although in future runs, I could just deposit this Pokemon and pick up the free Lapras once you leave Shalor City. On Route 5, I continue my training. Although our next gym leader is Grant, who we have a type advantage over, if we don't one-shot or outspeed a Mora, that battle could go south quickly. And Tyrant does have Bite. which could flinch us if it manages to outspeed, but we'll worry about that when it comes up in the run. For now, I do make the executive decision to pick up the TM for Hone Claws, although I don't make use of this move at all, so kind of a wasted pickup. I finish my training on Route 5, make my way through Camphirier Town, and head to Route 7. I'm gonna be running the typical errands at Parfum Palace. I won't be picking up any optional battles on Route 6 though. If I need to do any additional training, I can train in Grant's gym when the time comes. Thanks to the power of video editing, we can just get in and out of Parfum Palace and make our way back to Route 7 and wake up the Snorlax. We can go ahead and pick this up in Amberette Town where I grab the TM for Rock Smash, talk to the scientist about some fossils, and make my way to Glittering Cave where I'm going to pick up the TM for Shadow Claw. This will hold us over for a stab ghost type move until we hit level 45 and learn Phantom Force. More importantly though, it can replace Astonish. I hate that move, and you'll see why in the Gourgeist video. We can scare away Team Flare because we're a spooky ghost and take the Sail Fossil at the end. Let's go ahead and pick this up at the Salage City Gym, where I'm going to pick up a few optional battles to reach level 23 and reach another damage rounding threshold. Yay for having a type advantage in the gym. Although level 23 wasn't needed to defeat Grant, and thankfully I outspeed both of his Pokemon. Hornleech one-shots Amora so I can hang on to my Cherry Berry, and although Tyrunt isn't a one-shot and actually gets me surprisingly low, we are able to two-shot it. It's always nice when arguably the hardest gym leader in these runs is a first try victory. We can make our way through Route 10, picking up some optional battles, and of course battling Team Flare on our way to Geosenge Town. And while Brazen might not have the psychic type that Delphox will have, it's still a formidable foe at this point in the game. But besides Brazen, I'll also have to worry about Absol as well. Luckily for me, there are a lot of trainers within Reflection Cave that I can battle against, and by the time I exit the cave, Trevenant reaches level 31 and is able to learn the move Will-O-Wisp. With this, not only can I cut Absol's 130 base attack stat, but I can inflict chip damage to it every turn as well from the burn. But if running Trevenant and Gourgeist have taught me anything, it's that things can go sideways very, very quickly. One thing I didn't cover in the video is that I'll be running Hidden Power Dark, except I won't be picking up Hidden Power. We'll have to see if that bites me in the ass later on in this run, but for now we're going to focus on this rival battle against Serena. Meowstic isn't much of a worry. It's Brazen and Absol that are trouble. Absol outspeeds me and its bite does massive damage. Hornleech doesn't recover enough HP for me and I go down the next turn. In the next battle, I've taught Will-O-Wisp, which I'll use to cut Absol's attack stat and hopefully withstand a bite, which I do. I'm hoping that the HP recovery from Hornleech is enough to withstand anything Brazen can throw at me. I went for Feint Attack because I thought this thing had the Psychic typing already, but it doesn't, it's just a pure Fire type, and had I gone for Return, I would have won this attempt. And in my very next attempt, I just go for Return, and 2 turns of it is able to knock it out. But we have to face Karina next, and her ace Pokemon is Hawlucha, who's part Flying type. And with moves like Hone Claws and Flying Press on its moveset, things could get bad for Trevenant quickly. Karina starts out the battle by recalling Mienfoo and sending out Machoke. Hornleech doesn't quite get the one-shot, and it's just going to go for Rock Tomb on me to get speed control. I do burn it just to lessen any damage it could do. The burn ends up knocking it out, and any lost HP I can just gain back on Mienfoo with Hornleech, but now I have to deal with Hawlucha. And aside from Karina using a Hyper Potion on it, this thing just spams Hone Claws, never once attacking me with Flying Press. On Route 12, I'm going to do a bit more optional training, and it's against Backpacker Joran that I level up to level 35 and I'm able to learn Forest Curse. I went over this briefly earlier in the run, but if you need a reminder, it adds the Grass typing to the opponent. It's similar to Trick or Treat for Gourgeist, which adds the Ghost typing, and I think I could make some use of this move, so I decide to delete Return for it, because I can always reteach Return if need be. I briefly enter Comarine City to talk to the girl on the cliff to get the TM for Trick Room, which I think could come in handy in this run, And while I do have the TM for Poison Jab in my inventory, there's another TM that I can pick up that I think would pair well with Forest's Curse. I could also use this TM against Ramos and against Olympia later on in the run. This move will also give me super effective damage against the rivals Absol and Meowstic, and will be able to deal neutral damage once Brazen evolves into a Delphox. And that move is TM81 X Scissor. Unfortunately, I forget to put it on my moveset before the rival battle outside of the Comarine City gym, but at least I have Poison Jab to pair with Forest's Curse. I end up not utilizing this combo against the rival though. Hornleech barely misses the one-shot on Absol as Bite does over half of my HP. Last is Brazen, and any fire move will probably knock me out, but it just goes for Psybeam, as Poison Jab is able to get the 2-hit. So with Poison Jab and X Scissor at my disposal, Ramos should be no problem, right? While embarrassing as this may sound, I almost lose to Ramos, and it's his Jump Luff that does the most damage to me. Yes, a Pokemon with a 55 base attack stat. And it's all because of the move Acrobatics, which is normally 55 base power, but doubles when you're not holding an item, and Jump Luff gets stab damage from this. The smart play would have been keeping Poison Jab over X Scissor, since Poison Jab would give me super effective damage on 2 out of 3 of his Pokemon, while X Scissor only gives me super effective damage on 1, and neutral damage to the other 2. If it weren't for having the leftovers, I probably would have lost this battle. And if you've been paying attention to the battle in the background, while Weepinbell is able to deal a little bit of chip damage to me, once I make it to the Go-Go, I'm pretty much home free. It's only going to use Bulldoze as a speed control move, and its only 2 other moves are Takedown, which can't hit me, and Grass Knot, which deals not very effective damage. Next up, I have to venture through the Lumio City Badlands to the power plant. It's a section like this in the run that I'm thankful that TMs are reusable. Being able to switch between Return, Shadow Claw, and X Scissor is a godsend in this section. But being able to skip through all of it thanks to the power of video editing is an even bigger godsend. Before taking on Clement's gym challenge though, I'm going to pick up the TM for Bulldoze, so I have super effective damage, and the TM for Sunny Day, so that we can make use of our ability later on in the run. Bulldoze won't help me against his lead Pokemon Emolga though, but the Cherry Berry that I didn't use against Grant would have, because its static ability paralyzes me after I hit it with Shadow Claw. He does burn up a Hyper Potion though, and I do get a better damage roll on the next turn, knocking it out. I know I talked about Bulldoze earlier, but I pulled a Mii and didn't teach it for this battle. But thankfully I do have Shadow Claw, which can deal neutral damage to Magneton. And although Heliolisk's Thunderbolt is boosted by the electric terrain, it still doesn't do nearly enough damage to Trevenant, and Hornleech is enough to get the job done. Although Bulldoze would have made that battle go much, much quicker. We have another rival battle against Serena on Route 14, and although I don't have Bulldoze on my moveset still, Shadow Claw will give me super effective damage on 2 of her Pokemon. One of those Pokemon happens to be Delphox, who's now part Psychic type, and like Meowstic, goes down to 1 Shadow Claw. All that's left is Absol, and Hornleech is more than enough to finish it off and top off my HP. I'm going to continue training on Route 14, and I'm going to pick up the TM for Will-O-Wisp near the end of it. But while training, I level up to level 45, and I have the option to learn Phantom Force, a 2-turn ghost move that grants immunity on turn 1 and then strikes on turn 2 with 90 base power. I decide to delete Shadow Claw in place of this move. Once we arrive in Laver City though, I'm going to waste no time and take on the gym leader Valerie right away. I did remember to put Bulldoze on my moveset since her lead Pokemon Mawile is part Steel type. Bulldoze barely misses the one-shot as it sets up Iron Defense, and then we burn through all of Valerie's Hyper Potions. Because Mawile is able to set up to +4 with Iron Defense, Bulldoze isn't doing much damage as it starts to retaliate with Crunch. I switched to Phantom Force just so I can have the turn of immunity and get some extra HP recovery with the leftovers. My next Phantom Force will knock this thing out, and Phantom Force will also give me super effective damage against Mr. Mime. However, I don't want this thing setting up Reflect, which is exactly what it does. Hornleech will get back some lost HP though, and I go for Bulldoze on my next turn just so we can outspeed it. We knock it out the next turn, and her last Pokemon is Sylveon. With Reflect still up, and this thing knowing Dazzling Gleam, damage can add up pretty quickly. However, thanks to HP recovery from the leftovers in Hornleech, along with Sylveon going for Charm on one turn, and the Reflect wearing off, we're able to get through this one. 6 badges down with the Pokeball Factory looming. And speaking of the Pokeball Factory, I'm going to be battling every optional grunt I come across. With the battles against Lysander looming, I don't want to take any chances. All of his Pokemon will have some type of move that will deal super effective damage to me. The Mienshao is very fast and can set up with Swords Dance and hit hard with acrobatics. Pyroar knows both Dark Pulse and Fire Blast. The Honchkrow knows both Aerial Ace and Night Slash, and while Mega Gyarados doesn't have anything that can deal super effective damage and its stat gains are pretty damn good, it loses its flying typing and gains the dark typing, which is perfect for a Pokemon like Trevenant. Since I've managed to talk the entire time throughout the Pokeball Factory, what do you say we just pick this up at Route 15? Route 15 is the home to many optional trainers, and although I was battling every single grunt in the Pokeball Factory, I'll admit, I didn't battle every single trainer I could here, which I might regret. I did pick up the rare candy though. Another regret I might have though is not teaching Trevenant Woodhammer. While it would be nice to have a 120 base power stab move, I didn't want to deal with that recoil damage, and Hornleech has been really useful throughout the playthrough. And like with Route 15, in Frost Cavern I don't fight every optional battle that I can, skipping 3 trainers in total: Battle Girl Kinsley, Black Belt Kenji, and Battle Girl Gabrielle. Once I make it to the end of the cave and battle Team Flare, I'm level 52. And while this should be more than enough to take on Serena outside of Olympia's gym, I'm still focused on the battles against Lysander that are coming up shortly. Although both Meowstic and Delphox outspeed Trevenant, Phantom Force is able to one-shot both of them. I can use Hornleech against Absol to recover any lost HP as it just sets up Swords Dance, and Bulldoze will one-shot her final Pokemon, Jolteon. That was a pretty easy battle, and we've got a pretty easy gym leader in Olympia next, considering that we do have a type advantage, and I remembered to teach X-Scissor. That way we have a move that can deal super effective damage and not take additional turns to knock out her Pokemon. Although I probably would have been better using Phantom Force in this battle. X-Scissor just deals neutral damage to Sigilyph, so it's a 2-shot. Against Meowstic, I just barely keep missing the 1-shot range, as Olympia burns through all of her Hyper Potions. Although it does hit me with a Shadow Ball doing about half of my HP. Last is Slowking. Hornleech will deal stab super effective damage, and it one-shots it. But now it's time for that part of the run I've been dreading, and it's also the part where I had to put off this voiceover because, well, I got walled here. I've already explained prior in the run why these battles against Lysander are going to suck. And watching Trevenant struggle here, even though Gourgeist has more speed, pending on its size, its move pool is lacking compared to Trevenant's, so when I do that, that's going to really suck. And in this first battle, it's Pyroar and Murkrow who I thought would give us problems that take us out. I do have 6 rare candies, and although I don't want to use all of them, I have to. I do get an extra one within Lysander's labs, which is nice. And although we do go up 3 damage rounding thresholds, I'll never know if these rare candies made the difference, because against the Murkrow, we critical hit with X-Scissor to take it out in 1 hit. And Gyarados, surprisingly, is the least threatening Pokemon on his team, despite having the ability Intimidate. And like the first battle against Lysander, this second one took me only 2 attempts, and you're watching the second attempt right here. We do knock out Mienshao in 1 hit, but don't worry, it's extremely dangerous in that final battle, and I'll explain when the time comes. Pyroar, it would be nice if we got a Fire Blast miss, but Bulldoze still has enough damage to be able to 2-hit it, with the speed drop being clutch. X-Scissor will 2-shot Honchkrow, and as long as Night Slash doesn't critically hit us, we're good. And since Hornleech deals neutral damage to Gyarados, we can recover any lost HP and tank its attacks pretty well. Although its first hit with Outrage does make me a little scared because it crits us, bringing us to 31 HP before Leftovers recovery. And if I didn't have Hornleech or the Leftovers, I definitely would have lost this second attempt. But it's the third battle against Lysander that was truly a test for Trevenant, and one that took me many attempts. Now you might be wondering why I'm starting off with Xerneas in this third battle. Well, for anybody who's never played X and Y, you're required to catch the box art legendaries and use them in this battle. Kind of like in Black and White where you're required to catch Zekrom and Reshiram, at least I'm pretty sure you had to catch them as a requirement and use them against N. I'm sure someone in the comments will let me know if I'm right or wrong about that. But as far as this attempt, it gets ended by a Fire Blast from Pyroar. And Mienshao, let's talk about that real quick. It outspeeds us, and if it sets up with something like Swords Dance and hits us with acrobatics like it does here, I was getting one-shot by that every time, but I guess it just rolled a lower damage roll here. I get lucky with a Fire Blast miss on Pyroar, and 2 Bulldozes knock it out, but now we have to talk about Honchkrow. X-Scissor barely misses the one-shot range, but Night Slash, when it crits like it does here, can take us out. So how did I eventually beat Lysander? Well, first, I had to use the one rare candy I found in Lysander's labs, but I also had to change up my moveset. Remember when I picked up the TM for Trick Room? Well, this is Trick Room's time to shine. It took me a while to decide what exactly should I delete, and I went back and forth between Phantom Force and X-Scissor, before finally deciding on Phantom Force. I also taught Dig over Bulldoze. I remember from Gen 1 to Gen 2, Dig went from 100 base power to 60, but it was later buffed again to 80 base power in the later gens. In this final battle, Mienshao goes for High Jump Kick, which can't hit us. Since it outspeeds, I decide to go for Trick Room, and now we're going to outspeed it and Pyroar. I can get back any lost HP with Hornleech, and with Dig on our moveset, it's got just enough power to one-shot Pyroar. But now things get complicated at Honchkrow, because it actually outspeeds us thanks to Trick Room.
My own attack?
Thankfully, Trick Room wears off, and we now outspeed it and can knock it out, and all that's left is Mega Gyarados. Because it Mega evolves before our attack, I really should have gone for Hornleech to get super effective stab damage. But 2 X-Scissors is more than enough to get the job done as well. Ah, sweet relief that's over. Before proceeding to Route 18, I'm going to pick up the TM for Substitute from this girl at the Anastar City Pokemon Center. I feel like it might come in handy down the line, and with how tough Lysander was, and considering we have Wulfric coming up, who has a type advantage over us, and considering that Abomasnow and Avalugg are pretty damn bulky, that one could be tough. So not only do I do some optional battles on Route 18, but I'm also going to be picking up some optional battles on Route 19. I've never had to train here in any run until now. Does this mean that this Pokemon is just destined to be trash? All this additional training brings me to the very nice level of 69, and thankfully Shauna, Tierno, and Trevor are no problems per usual. But now it's time to see if all of that additional training paid off as I face Wulfric. The main addition I made to my moveset is Power Up Punch, because I want to get enough attack boost to be able to either 1 or 2-shot Avalugg. Although Abomasnow's Ice Beam hits hard, I get it caught in a healing loop, and I'm able to get off 4 power-up punches in total. Exactly what I need. I can get back any lost HP on Cryogonal with Hornleech since it has paper-thin defense, and now Avalugg comes out. Power-up punch does a little over half as Avalanche nearly takes us out, but thank God Avalugg is so slow. Looking forward to doing that run in December. Pray for me. Now that we can use Waterfall outside of battle, there are a few things I want to pick up before heading to Victory Road. The first of which is going to have us backtrack to Koraway Town, where we can pick up the TM for Rock Slide. This will come in handy for both Malva and Drasna. The second TM we're going to pick up has us go all the way back to Santaloon City and go to Route 22, which is to the right of it. I've never been on this side of Route 22, but there's a lot of weak trainers around here with level 6 Pokemon. It's good to know that this exists if I ever need to train before Viola in future runs. Man, that probably would have come in handy for this run, but we can fast forward to this boulder puzzle that's over this way. It's pretty easy. Push one rock into the hole, then you push a second rock into the hole, and finally you can move the final rock into the hole. But the prize at the end is TM26 Earthquake, which is definitely going to come in handy for Malva. In Victory Road, I take on 18 total battles, mandatory and optional, and including the rival, along with picking up the rare candy that you can get in Victory Road. All of this brings me to level 77 before the league. Were the 18 battles overkill? Probably watching all of this back. But did it set me up for the league? Let's find out. So with every Pokemon in this game, I always ask myself, who do I want to take on first, and who do I want to take on last? Well, taking on Seabold first makes the most sense for Trevenant. Not only do we have a type advantage, but his most threatening Pokemon is his first Pokemon. While I could have gone for Hornleech right away and knocked this thing out in one hit more than likely, I wanted an attack boost from Power Up Punch to set myself up for Gyarados, which comes out immediately next. Because of Intimidate, my attack is just back to normal when I started the battle. Because I've got him caught in a healing loop, I decide to go for a Power-Up Punch just to get a small attack boost after his second full restore. Gyarados unfortunately outspeeds now and Ice Fang hits pretty hard, but Rock Slide is able to finally knock it out. Any lost HP though, we can just recover on Barbaracle, which is 4 times weak to Hornleech. We have full HP for Starmie now, and Psychic won't save it, as Hornleech just one-shots it. I decide to take on the toughest matchup for Trevenant next, in Malva. And early on in the run, this was a battle I thought Trick Room would come in handy, especially against her Pyroar, Talonflame, and Chandelure. But I don't even have it on my moveset for this battle, instead going with Hornleech, Power-Up Punch, Rock Slide, and Earthquake. Malva gives me a free first turn as she goes for Noble Roar and I counter with Power-Up Punch. Although Flamethrower hits hard the next turn, Power-Up Punch brings Pyroar into red health, and I couldn't have asked for a better scenario. Because she's now stuck in a healing loop, I can get free setup with Power-Up Punch. I'm able to get to +2 attack before knocking it out, and I think that'll be enough to knock out Torkoal with one Earthquake. She sends out Talonflame next, which hits hard with Brave Bird, but it's 4 times weak to Rock Slide. Chandelure's coming out next, and I'm hoping my 145 speed is enough to outspeed it, which it is, and it goes down to 1 Earthquake. All she has left is Torkoal, which I know we outspeed, and Earthquake does one-shot it. Next up is Wickstrom, and I'm going to be rolling with the same moveset, except I make a pretty big mistake at the beginning of the battle. Except I guess it didn't really matter because Klefki ended up going for Torment anyway, but I hit Rock Slide when I meant to go for Power-Up Punch. I do select it on the next turn because I did want a little bit of an attack boost going into the rest of Wickstrom's Pokemon, mainly for his Scizor, which comes out next, and his Aegislash. I do get another attack boost on Scizor as Night Slash doesn't do as much as I thought it would. I finish it off the next turn with Rock Slide. I was hoping Wickstrom would send out Probopass next so I could recover some HP with Hornleech, but he sends out Aegislash. I hesitate on what move to pick because I don't want to turn 1 King Shield, and thankfully he picked an attacking move as we knock it out in one hit. All that's left is Probopass, and I can switch between Power-Up Punch, Hornleech, and Earthquake. He'll be caught in a healing loop because of Sturdy, but once he runs out of full restores, this battle is ours. All we have left to beat is Drasna, and I'm going to be rolling the same moveset that we've been rolling for the past 2 members. Earthquake will one-shot Dragalge, but Noivern worries me, because it does no Air Slash, and if it flinches us, or crits us, we could be in trouble. It does outspeed us, and Air Slash does hit pretty hard, but Rock Slide crits and one-shots it. She sends out Altaria next, which really can't do much to me, while Rock Slide misses the one-shot, but now I can take advantage of Drasna's healing loop. I'll go for Power-Up Punch to boost my attack, and now Rock Slide will have that extra oomph to knock out Altaria. Last is Drudigan, and I thought this thing was dragon flying until I saw that Rock Slide wasn't super effective. Well, since it's not part flying type, that means I can finish it off with Earthquake. Only Diantha stands in Trevenant's way from finishing this run. I'm going to use my final 2 rare candies, along with deleting Rock Slide for Shadow Claw before this battle. Her toughest Pokemon though might be her first one in Hawlucha, as it knows both Swords Dance and Flying Press. There's no turning back now though. Let's see if Trevenant can beat the league on its first attempt. Hawlucha does outspeed me, and it's just going for Poison Jab. I get 1 power-up punch in, but I don't want to get poisoned or hit with Flying Press, so I just go for Shadow Claw on the next turn and knock it out. She sends out Aurorus next, and while I debated going for another power-up punch, I go for Horn Leech because I don't want this thing setting up screens. Next up she sends out Goodra, and while Fire Blast would be dangerous if I got hit by it, I don't, because Shadow Claw one-shots it. Next is Gourgeist, and this thing has to be good if she's using one, right? Right? Well, you'll just have to find out in the next video, but Shadow Claw one-shots it. I have Earthquake on my moveset just for Tyrantrum, which +1, yeah, we knock it out. All that's left is Gardevoir, and although it does know Shadow Ball, it won't get the chance to use it because we outspeed it and knock it out with Shadow Claw. While there were parts of this run that were not fun, Trevenant finishes with a respectable in-game time of 7 hours and 1 minute, beating out a fellow Ghost-type Pokemon like Aegislash. And I'll bring up the tier list here, but I did a little bit of rebalancing for these Gen 6 runs. Shout out to Scott's Thoughts, where I got this idea from watching his videos. We've got some loners in the tiers S through D, but Trevenant is going to find company in the E tier with Aegislash and Greninja. And when I eventually redo those two, I'm sure they'll move up a tier or 2 on the list. As always, thank you for the continued support on the channel. I'm getting back into streaming on the channel, so make sure that you stay tuned this Saturday, as I'll be running Tapu Fini through Pokemon Red and Blue with Steve M Plays and Speedrunner0218. I'm going to get to work on Gourgeist again, and let me just tell you, you're in for a surprise in that run. As much as I'd love to say more during these credits, I really don't have anything else for you. I'll catch you in my next video. Take care, everybody.